Remember when Valve tried to take over your living room? Before the Steam Deck, there was the Steam Machine. A bold idea that promised to merge gaming with the simplicity of a console. But did it work? And more importantly, is it still relevant today? In this minute deep dive, I'll break down everything. The hardware, the software, the controller, the performance, and who this thing is actually for. Let's get into it. So, what exactly is a Steam machine? In simple terms, it's a pre-built gaming PC running Valve's own operating system SteamOS. But unlike a traditional PC, it's designed to sit under your TV and be controlled with a gamepad, just like a PlayStation or Xbox. Valve announced the concept back in 2013. The idea was revolutionary. Give PC gamers a console-like experience, and give console gamers access to the massive Steam library. Multiple manufacturers got on board: Alienware, Zotac, Severpower, and even Dell. Each made their own version with different specs and price points. The operating system was based on Linux, not Windows. That was a bold move, because it meant not every Windows game would run natively. But Valve promised a curated experience: games that just work. No drivers, no settings menus, no hassle. Here's the first thing you need to understand. There's no single Steam machine. It's a platform, not a specific device. You could buy a cheap entry-level model for around $400, or a high-end beast for over $2,000. The low-end machines came with Intel Core i processors, of RAM, and integrated graphics. Fine for indie games, 2D platformers, and older titles. But for modern 3A games, forget it. The mid-tier models packed an A5, 8GB of RAM, and a dedicated GPU like the NVIDIA GTX 960 that could handle most games at 1080p on medium settings. And the premium tier, we're talking i7 processors, 16GB of RAM, and GTX 980 or even Titan GPUs. Those could run anything you threw at them, but at a console-beating price. So, right away, you see the problem. A console gives you one predictable experience. A Steam machine gives you a spectrum, and the cheap ones disappointed people who didn't know what they were buying. Now let's talk about the heart of the Steam machine: SteamOS. Based on Debian Linux, it was designed to do one thing: boot straight into big picture mode and let you play games. And honestly, the interface was beautiful, clean, fast, and focused. You could browse your library, see your friends list, access the store, and launch games all with a controller. No Windows taskbar, no pop-ups, no antivirus notifications, just pure gaming. Valve also introduced in-home streaming, which let you stream games from your Windows to the Steam machine over your local network. That was a clever workaround for games that weren't Linux compatible, but here's the catch. Native Linux game library was limited. At launch, only about 300 games were officially supported. Today, that number is over 10,000, but back then, it was a real barrier. If your favorite game wasn't on the list, you had to stream it or dual boot Windows, which defeated the whole console simplicity idea. Let's be honest, the Steam controller was the most controversial part of the whole package. It looks weird, it feels weird, and it takes serious time to get used to. Instead of traditional analog sticks, it has two circular trackpads with haptic feedback. They're designed to simulate a mouse or a trackball. For strategy games, point-and-click adventures, or games that require precise cursor control, it's brilliant. You can even tweak the sensitivity, dead zones, and acceleration in Steam's configuration tool. But for first-person shooters, it's awkward. Many players complained about accuracy and muscle memory. Valve later released a firmware update that improved things, but it never matched the feel of a standard Xbox or PlayStation controller. The controller also has dual stage triggers, 4 grip buttons on the back, and a gyroscope for motion aiming. So, it's incredibly customizable, but the learning curve is steep. Some people loved it, most people tolerated it, and many just plugged in an Xbox controller instead. Here's the elephant in the room: performance. And it's not a simple story. On a high-end Steam machine, games like The Witcher 3, Metro, Last Light, and Tomb Raider ran beautifully at 1080p 60 frames per second. Linux performance was actually decent. Valve worked closely with Nvidia and ARM to optimize drivers, but on a budget machine. Counter-Strike Go ran fine. Portal 2 was smooth, but try to run Fallout 4 or Grand Theft Auto 5, and you'd get stutters, low frame rates, and long load times. The experience wasn't consistent, and that's a killer for a console competitor. Worse, many games that did run had graphical glitches or missing effects because of OpenWorld's direct differences. Valve pushed Vulkan as a solution, and that helped, but the damage was done. Gamers expected plug-and-play perfection. Instead, they got quirks in a console box. Now let's talk money. The Steam machine launched at a time when the PS4 and Xbox One were $399. The entry-level Steam machine was also around $400, but it performed worse than both consoles. A $400 Steam machine gave you a dual-core CPU and integrated graphics. A $400 gave you a dedicated GPU and games optimized specifically for that hardware. The value proposition just wasn't there. And if you wanted a Steam machine that could beat a console, you were looking at $800 to $1,000 minimum. At that point, you could build a better Windows yourself, with more games and better performance. Valve also had to compete with the living room trend. People were already connecting their gaming rigs to TVs via HDMI. So the Steam machine wasn't solving a problem that didn't already have a solution. So, after all that, who was the Steam machine actually for? For gamers who wanted a secondary device for the living room, it was a decent option, especially if you already owned a powerful Windows and could stream games. For console gamers curious about Steam, it was a risky buy. Limited library, inconsistent performance, and a controller that took weeks to master. And for casual players, too expensive, too complicated, and too niche. Valve eventually discontinued the Steam machine program in 2018, but the lessons they learned went straight into the Steam Deck, which fixed almost every problem. Better portability, unified hardware, and a massive library thanks to Proton compatibility. The Steam machine was ahead of its time, but it was also flawed. It's a fascinating piece of gaming history, and if you find one cheap on eBay today, it's a fun curiosity. But as a serious gaming device, it never quite found its audience. Thanks for watching this 9-minute deep dive. If you enjoyed it, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, would you buy a Steam machine today for the nostalgia? I'll see you in the next one.